All right, welcome everyone. We are holding by Pirke Avos. Again, I want to welcome everyone to this class on Pirke Avos, ethics of fathers, as is known. We are in chapter 2, Mishna 13, and we are at part 11. Probably going to be part 12, part 13, part 14. Right, a lot to speak about. Definitely a lot to speak about in this Mishnah. So the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says over here, we said before, go out and discern what's the proper way, which a person should cling. And we said in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says a good eye. Rabbi Yeshua says a good friend. You know, we spoke about rebuke, right? Getting rebuke from a friend and, you know, and all that. And now we're going to go on to Rabbi Yossi. Right, what does Rabbi Yossi say over here? Rabbi Yossi says a good neighbor. So what does it mean? What does it mean, a good neighbor over here? So a good neighbor is someone, you know, who's always around. Right? A neighbor is usually someone, you know, lives nearby, you know, is usually around, let's say. And, you know, even though, you know, a good friend, you'll say, well, isn't a good friend, wouldn't we say good friends always around? Not necessarily, right? It depends if you get a hold of them. You know, you can't get a hold of them, but a neighbor is usually around, right? That's really the bottom line. That's the difference over here. Now, you could tell me, well, you know, a neighbor may be away, you know, etc., or maybe they're not always around. But I would say that, you know, a neighbor's usually there, right? It's more common for them to be around, you know, than not. But a friend, right? Why is this different than a good friend? Because the friends aren't always available, right? You know, they have limitations. They're busy doing whatever they're doing, family commitments, other things. So, you know, a good friend may not be around. You know, at that time, he might not be around. But a neighbor, you know, as we said, is normally around. So, you know, not only that, you know, but neighbors will help out each other, even, you know, if they're going to lose time. Even if they're going to potentially lose money, right? That's how far neighbors go. Right, to help out their, you know, fellow neighbors. The person lives on the street, in the building, you know, whatever it is. I don't know, you know, some people you'd be more friendly with, less friendly with, but, you know, if something happens a lot of times, you know, neighbors will help, neighbors will pitch in, you know, even if it's a loss, right? Even if it's a loss for them. You know, are they doing it because they expect someone to reciprocate? Right? We wouldn't say that, you know, ulterior motive. You know, a neighbor wants to help their fellow neighbor. You know, it has nothing to do with, oh, what am I going to get back? You know, what's in it for me? Person's a neighbor. Now, again, you might get along better. You might get along worse. Some people say maybe in certain places, neighbors aren't so friendly. Right? You know, maybe people on the street not so friendly. You know, etc. But in general, right? In general, person lives in, you know, a certain place, you know, for any length of time. Neighbors go out of their way to help out fellow neighbors, right? Regardless of whether it may cost them time or whether it's going to cost them money, right? You know, they're not being nice for the sake of being nice because they're getting something, right? They're getting something out of it. There may be people. Right? There may be people, throw this out there, right? There definitely may be people that are only going to do things if it benefits them. If there's any benefit, you know, for them. Or, you know, maybe they're going to do it because, I don't know, any number of reasons. You know, but it's not the right reason. They're not doing it to help because they want to help. So there may be selfish people out there. You know, and they'll think in the back of their mind, yeah, you know, maybe I'll help them or I'll help with this because, they'll reciprocate, or I'll get something back from it. Now, someone could say, come on, are most people going to be like that? Probably not. Right? Probably not. They'll help out without thinking about it. And not think, well, what am I going to get out of this? Well, maybe they'll help me in the future, so I'll help over here. They're not making that type of, I wouldn't say maybe. There's some people out there may do that. Maybe. I'm not going to say it's a majority. It's not the majority. But there could be people. There could be selfish people, out there to do things because they're selfish. They're selfish. So, if it doesn't affect them, doesn't affect their status, not going to cost them money. What do they have to lose? Right? What do they have to lose in general? Probably nothing. Right? Probably nothing. They have nothing to lose. Okay. If they have nothing to lose, now they may do it, they may not do it. Or they may come up with excuses. Why they may not do it. Normally, again, I'll be accused of anything here. Normally, let's say a person's down. They're down for whatever reason. Now, sometimes, or I should say better, normally, who could a person go to? Let's say for help, whatever it may be, family. Yeah, obviously it depends on the relationship, depend on the relationship of, family members, this and that. But usually, and again, this is not foolproof, obviously, but, we would say if someone's down and they're in dire straits and they need help, a person could say, well, you can always count on family. Well, that's probably not necessarily true. I wouldn't say it's 100% true because, there may be family members who don't want to help. They'll say it's your own problem, sorry, but even if they could help, right? Even if they could help, they don't want to for whatever reason. They may be justified, they may not be justified, right? But you would think, again, in theory, you may think, well, isn't it true that, the chips are down, I should be able to go to family? Maybe. No, maybe in a lot of cases that's true. Maybe in cases not true. But you may think, if you can't get friends to help you, let's say, depending on what it is. And a person may go to family. Family might not be the first option. But even if they're not, what should happen? A person's down, you go to family, because you know what they say, blood is blood. Blood is thicker than water. Right? So they'll say, come on, your family over here. You're not going to help me. Again, it depends what the circumstances are. It depends what the relationship is. There are a lot of different factors. But family should come to this person's aid. All things being equal. If it's not abusive or not, whatever. There are a lot of factors. A lot of different factors involved. Well, let's say a lot of these factors don't matter. And it's not something, might inconvenience them or whatever. The question is, are they going to help you? Even if they could help you, let's say. Or even if it's something, very hard. So some will say, probably many would say, all things being equal, you should be able to count on family. You should be able to count on family to help. Now, is that a guarantee? No. 100% is not a guarantee. Right? The question would be, should we expect it? Is it something we should expect? Now, again, it's going to depend on what your relationship is. And it's going to depend what the thing is. So I grew up with this idea that people would say, about family and friends in general, expect nothing, whatever you get is a blessing. Now, that's a pretty, low way of looking at things because, it is a way to protect yourself because if you are in need and people don't come through for you, that's a huge disappointment. when you're expecting someone, to come through at some level. But if you don't expect it, and then someone decides to help you anyway, so that's huge, right? So then, not only don't you lose anything, you gain, right? But so, it's a mechanism people will use to protect themselves. Now, is that an obligation? Let's throw this out there. We'll flush this out now. Is that an obligation? A family member's in dire straits, right? They come to help, to ask for help, or a family member volunteers help. Family member says, yeah, I see this happen, can I do anything for you? Can I help? Because you'll say that's what family does, or that's what family should do. Now, so you say, well, does it depend on the family? Maybe it depends on the family member. Not everyone's going to, rise to the occasion. Not everyone's going to do that. They'll just say, oh, they may not even say anything. They may not even say, hey, that, you must be going through a hard time. At least show a little bit of empathy. They may not even give that. Right? Some might, some more, some more, some less. The question is, do we have a right? Do we have a right to expect they should help us? Because, what could people say? Again, it's going to depend on what the situation is. I'm just speaking in generality. Someone can say, hey, you did this to yourself. You're doing this negative behavior. Why should I help you? It's only going to spiral. The negative behavior could get worse. So what am I doing helping you? Helping you won't help over here. It's just going to perpetuate negative behavior. So that could be true. Certainly, it could be true. Well, let's say that's not the case. Let's say it's not the case. And people don't, people not only they don't say anything, and they're not empathetic, they don't do anything to help you. And I remember when everything happened to me, someone said, well, I was involved in, something else. And someone said, well, you got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. You got to put food on the table. You do what you do. You don't have a choice. You don't like it. Well, too bad. This is a situation. That doesn't sound very empathetic. Yeah. You're in that situation. You should have done this. Maybe you should have done that. You should have done 10 other things. Right? But things happen above nature. So what are you supposed to do? Didn't happen with, what I went through, just using myself as an example. I didn't sign up for it. Not something I signed up for. It never should have happened above nature. Totally above nature. But obviously God wanted it to happen for whatever reason. Whatever reason. Right? So, sometime later, people will say, or maybe some people will say, hey, so you got to go through this? Okay. You got to do what you got to do. Yeah. Well, what does that sound like? It doesn't sound like empathy. It doesn't sound like, I understand you're going through a hard time, and this, that, but no, just the opposite. Just the opposite. Then you get slammed. Oh, you should have done this. Oh, you should have done that. Like everybody's a Monday morning quarterback. Oh, I would have done this, or I would have done that. Yeah, very good. That doesn't change the situation. That doesn't make the person feel better either. Right? In other words, there's an obligation, Jew and non-Jew. Right? Whether you convert or not, doesn't matter. There's an obligation, someone's sick, go visit them. Right? You go visit them. But you have to know how to visit them. There's a story of Pesach Kron, should be well. Tells the story. Someone went to visit someone in the hospital. Said, oh, you got it so easy here. You're getting 3 square meals a day. You got peace and quiet over here. They go through the, normal, everyday, things that we have to go through. Guy's in the hospital, right? So a nurse comes running over and says, I don't know what you're saying to this patient, but you're going to kill them. Like, the monitors are going berserk, right? This person goes to them, goes to the patient, he's telling him like all these great things. Oh, you're so glad, you should so glad to be here. You're getting your meals taken care of. You don't have the outside noise, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the guy's in the hospital, for goodness sake, right? But it was worse than that. Because the person who was listening to what this other person was saying, they're killing them. they're making them feel worse. So all the monitors are going crazy. So when these monitors are going crazy, the nurses run in and say, I don't know what's going on over here, but you're going to kill this patient. Right there, you have to know how to give someone strength while they're sick. If they can't function, that's, one thing you're not going to, you should be so happy you're here. It's so cold outside. It's this, you have to deal with the outside world right now. You're going to get plenty of rest over here. People are going to take care. That's not what they want to hear. Someone who's sick and can't move and is in pain or whatever the case is, covering from surgery, they don't want to hear that. Right? Certainly if I was there, I wouldn't want to hear that. Right? But the monitors, were the vessel of truth over here. The monitors are going absolutely berserk. Right? So the nurse is telling, I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what you said, but don't open your mouth again. Right? You have to know how to visit people. Sometimes, or maybe a lot of times, right? You're there just to listen to the person. Not necessarily, certainly by a mourner's house, that's the case. By a mourner's house, the halacha is you don't speak to the mourner until they speak to you. In other words, you don't ask them questions. You don't say what happened, this, that, until they speak to you. Right? They're the ones in pain. So by you sitting there, they're getting out the pain. That's a whole different issue. That's a whole different issue. But you're not allowed to talk unless they talk to you. And then when they talk to you, you have to know how to comfort them. And sometimes what's the best way of comfort when someone's had a loss? Just to say nothing. Just to listen, right? I know of certain stories, the great rabbis came, to be, to comfort the mourner. And all they did was they didn't say a word. They didn't say a word. There's stories, they gave the person a hug, they sat there and listened, they left. And the person was tremendously uplifted by it because he wasn't looking for encouragement. Right? Sometimes, a person sitting there, not necessarily looking for encouragement, he just wants to get it out about, what this loved one, what they meant to them and what they missed and, different things. Sometimes the best thing is keep your big mouth shut. You don't have to answer. You don't have to say anything, per se. If they talk and they this and you ask them, okay. Right? But for you to ask them straight out, you have to wait. You have to wait because, that's the way, that's the way we mourn over here. A mourner does not, he talks first. You don't start up the conversation. And sometimes the best thing to do, is be quiet, not say anything, right? There is a certain thing you say afterward, when you get up to leave, but, other than that, who says you have to talk? Who says you have to say anything? We think, we got a lot of obligations to do. Not necessarily. A person sick might be a different issue, right? A person sick, yeah, you give them strength, try and give them strength, you pray for them, just by being there helps. But again, you have to know when you're allowed to go. You shouldn't go there when they're sleeping. Yeah, you speak to the family before you go visit. There's protocol. You don't just show up and say, here I am, you wake them up. They're recovering from surgery or whatever. Or maybe they haven't slept, the whole night. They need to sleep. So you have to know when to go visit. Regardless when visiting hours are. They may not be ready, they may not be, healthy enough to have people there. So yeah, you have to know how to do it. But again, it's for their sake. It's for their sake, not your sake. Right? You're there to help. You get the mitzvah of helping, no question. But you have to know, it's like anything else. You have to know what to do. Right? You have to know what to do. And sometimes the best thing is you don't say anything. That's the best thing. Right? That's what people may need. Again, we may think otherwise. We may think we know better. So no matter what we think. Irrelevant what we think. Right? But back to the point, is sometimes we expect more from people that are closer to us. And then what happens? They don't come through. They drop the ball, let's say. Or we have higher expectations and they help, but they didn't help what we wanted them to do. So you could say, well, at least they did something. Or you can say, expect very little and they give you more, very good. But that doesn't always work. Because the reason is you need to lean on somebody. And you would expect, or you would think, let's say better. I shouldn't say expect. A person would think when the chips are down, who can you rely on? Family. Family you should be able to rely on in general. Now, a person can say, well, family, way the family's set up, it's all messed up and this, okay, could be. I'm just saying in general. Right? Does it always go that way? Certainly not. And a lot of factors involved. That's not the point. Right? The idea is we could have, greater expectations. And these greater expectations based on nothing. Because, we make assumptions. We can make bad assumptions. And the bad assumption is I'm relying on you and that you should help me. Now, who says this person is going to come through? Who says this person's even going to show empathy? They're going to feel bad for your situation. Or they're going to console you. There are people out there who wouldn't know how to empathize if it hit them on the head in front of their face. That is not in their, not part of their DNA. They may say, well, you did this, you did that, you did the other thing. So like, what do you expect? You had a coming over here. You should have done other things. That's not what a person wants to hear when they need help. So it could be a person should think, I'm not expecting anything. You give me something very good. If you don't, okay. Right? It's what does that do? I don't think it's healthy to say that, by the way, even though I've heard it many times. Right? But what does it do? It's a defense mechanism. It's a defense mechanism that says that I'm not going to get hurt if you don't carry any weight over here or very little weight. If you, in other words, I have certain expectations. Not only you don't come close to doing it, you don't do anything. So, okay. So I had certain expectations, but if I had other expectations, and a person thought, okay, I don't really think they're going to do anything for me, but if they do, okay, I'll throw it out there. And if nothing happens, you understand. Right? But you understand the back of your mind or the front of your mind, you're probably expecting nothing to happen. Because the person, let's say, has never come through anyway. So why are you going to them anyway? Because you feel you have no choice. You feel you have no choice over here. So that, I would say, would lessen the pain. Because you have expectations that aren't realistic. But if you have expectations that it probably can never be met, and it probably won't be met, okay. So you don't lose anything. You don't lose anything by trying. You're going to say, what about aggravation when you get rejected? So again, what's the mentality? Right? You're going to say, well, they could help me, but they may choose not to. They, not only that, they may give you muster in the process. Okay. So even if you know that, and they're probably not going to help anyway. Right? So the pain is less. The disappointment is much less. But you have to think of another thing. And the other thing is, you could say, well, this is painful. I understand how it works. So I'm prepared not to feel the pain as much. But at the end of the day, what can a person say? Okay, if they don't do this, I'll never speak to them again. Or if they don't help me out here, then, X, Y, or Z. Now, you might be justified, totally justified. Why? If you didn't expect anything, or you expected very little, you gotta put that into action. That means anything else in your heart you put away. But what happens? Your mind understands that, your heart still gets hurt. Your heart seems to get trampled over here. So when your heart gets trampled, you can't put that out of your mind. Right? This mind to heart disconnect, which we speak about a lot. I know what the right thing is. I know what the right mentality is, let's say. And that's not easy to find. But let's say I got the right mentality. Very good. Right? So now you understand how it works. You understand what the person can say, do, or not do. And if they don't do it, and you understand why they're not going to do it, and you've already played that in your mind 100 times. So now why are you getting upset? Because there's a possibility, probably 90% chance that's what's going to happen. Okay. So why are you going to get upset by it? Because it's still in the heart. It still pains a person. Because even though you didn't really expect help anyway, deep down you're hoping. You have that small percentage that's hoping maybe they will help. Maybe they will turn an open ear. Maybe. You'll say wishful thinking. Okay. Right. But what do we want? What do people want in general? Especially from family. Acceptance. Do we want them to be exactly like us? That'd be better. 100%. But all a person wants is a pat in the back and say, we accept you for who you are. We're behind you. Whatever you decide to do. What's the problem? Problem is you may never get that. Or it may be impossible for a person to even think they're going to get it. But that's what we crave. We're not, let's just say, we're not going to convince them. They're not interested in being convinced. Okay. So you can talk about other things. Other things that, don't have to do with religion, or God. You can say, what else are you going to talk about? Okay, good question. Yeah, we're talking about politics. We're talking about this. But if they don't accept you and they demolish you, that's hard. That's extremely hard. So you're going to say, what? We shouldn't expect acceptance? No. Nobody's really that open-minded today. Mentioned this before. I met one open-minded person in the last 30 years. I was telling someone that last night. I met one open-minded person. Everyone else, a bunch of liars. They're all a bunch of liars. Every last one. They're not open-minded. It's my way or the highway. Oh, you don't think what I think? You're out. So what happened to exchange of ideas? They don't want exchange of ideas, because what if you're right? But one person tell me if I look into it and I find out Torah is true and they were intermarried, and I find out Torah is true, then I have to change. I'm not willing to change. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to look into it. Okay? They are intellectually honest. Other people say, no, it's not this. It's all made up. It's make-believe. It's this, it's that. And everyone's got their own agenda. You're going to convince someone of an agenda? No. You know why you're not going to convince them? Because they're not interested. You can't get them to drink. They're not interested. Anyone ever dealt with a missionary? You answer a missionary's question. You put them in a corner. What they do? They come up with another question, and a third question, and a fourth question, but they don't have answers to any of them. It's like talking. It's like talking to a brick. Like talking to a wall. So people enjoy talking to a wall. I had a conversation with someone last week. And I was mentioning the story, everyone knows. And I mentioned the story just in passing, of how, I got locked in the bathroom, right? So I said, yeah, I would have loved to have prayed, get me out of the situation. God take me out of the situation, but I'm stuck in the bathroom, right? Can't pray in the bathroom. So this person just threw this out there. So this person says, oh, is that one of the rules? I'm like, yeah. So you can't pray in a disgusting place. So a bathroom is a disgusting place. You can't think Torah, right? And you can't pray. Did the person care about my answer? No, right? Doesn't want to make, oh, is that one of the rules? No, my answer was, yeah. That was it. Yeah, it's one of the rules. You can't pray in a place that's disgusting. That's one of the rules. Anyway, that was it. That was the end of the conversation. At least that part of the conversation. But, they're not going to listen to what I say anyway. So what's the difference? What's the difference? But the point being is, if a person wants to, get through life, and that's probably not good advice. Psychologists may not tell you it's not healthy. But if a person wants to protect themselves, and they want to say, I have certain expectations, right? The easiest way to fix this problem is not to have expectations, or minimal expectations. But if you have to rely on someone, you have higher expectations, you're going to get disappointed. A person will 100% get disappointed because they didn't do what you told them to do. Maybe they did it halfway, a quarter way, or whatever. So, so a person would say, what, I shouldn't have expectations? I shouldn't have goals? No. You should have goals. A person should have expectations. But what happens for any number of reasons that these expectations are not met? Especially by people we think should help us. I was in a certain situation, and again, use myself as an example. And someone did something, and I called them on it, for different reasons. I was like, oh, why'd you do that? This could have helped tremendously, this, that, and the other thing. They didn't think about it. I think about someone else's needs. Okay, person can do whatever they want. True. They can do whatever they want. I mean, the story's not over yet. We'll see. Right? But they were just like, I mentioned a few things, and, well, I don't know. And, it went right over their head. Right over their head. Totally nonchalant. Right? Was I expecting the moon? No. I had different ideas in my head. Conversation go this way, that way, the other way. Okay. I'll go to plan B, plan C, plan F. All these different things. Right? And I don't know what's going to come out of it in the end. See? You know what? But it wasn't even on the person's radar. They're going to say it doesn't have to be. They can do what they want. You're right. Anyone can do whatever they want. What makes a Jewish person is three things. Three character traits. One is they're Rahmanim, Baishanim, and Gimel Chasadim. They have compassion for others. Because you see, all the, a lot of leftists and different things, they have compassion for all kinds of things. A lot of them are Jews. They're Baishanim, they get embarrassed easily. And Gimel Chasadim, they help each other. They do acts of loving kindness. So we the Jewish people, when it comes to giving charity, helping others, exponentially, we're greater than any other nation. Combined, what we do. Why greater, do I say? Because if we use the Torah the way it should be, we help each other all the time. In a religious community, I mentioned this before. They have all these gemachim, gimel chesed, acts of loving kindness. People give things away for free to help people. If someone, didn't buy challah for Shabbos, someone has extra challah, right? Or, there are people that have, let's say, medicine. They have all kinds of medicine. So you don't have to pay for it. You just have to, replenish it or whatever. They have all these medicines, right? If a person, let's say, can't get to the pharmacy or, before Shabbos, they need the medicine straight away. They don't get paid for that. Their time, their effort, whatever. You have to replenish the medicine, okay? There are all kinds of, the person needs a lawnmower. Your backyard's like a jungle. Someone's got to, I should borrow a lawnmower. In the secular world, secular Jewish world, these things don't exist. Not at all. Remember, a friend of mine had a fax gemach. Anyone needed faxes, gave him the number, right? And fax not so in vogue today, but let's say they gave them the number. Anyone needed a fax, they would get a fax sent to them. They would give it to them, and they would replenish the paper. They didn't ask any people for money for it. In the secular Jewish world, these things don't exist. Not anywhere. Not anywhere. So, we help out our own. I mean, we don't help out others either. But exponentially, that's what makes us who we are. That's one of the things that makes us who we are. That, we give more charity than anybody combined, right? Even though we're 1/1000 of the world's population. Even the secular Jewish world, they raise tens of thousands, millions of dollars a year, probably close to $500 million or more. The UJA, the UJC, United Jewish Appeal, United Jewish Congress. Now, it could be a lot of that money's wasted and goes to terrible things, but they raise a lot of money. They raise an unbelievable amount of money. So there's an idea. It's inside of us to want to help others. Now, people may be misguided, help the wrong things, could be. Right? But it could be also there are people that, their Judaism is so far from them that they lose these things. Even if they could help. They don't want to help. They'll say, I did this. You go find your own way. Why do I have to help you? Right? Or, they don't think about anyone else. They think about their own thing. But this could have helped someone here, left, right, and center. They think about it. It's not on their radar. It's not on their agenda. But they're born a Jew. Yeah, but that Judaism could get buried. So the people don't have a clue. They help other things. They give the money, to all kinds of garbage. But where does charity start? Charity starts at home. Now people say, so you only help your own people. Everybody helps their own people first. Not just us. You don't think the Italians going to help the Italians first? Jamaica's not going to help their own people first before they start helping others. I'm not being selfish. That's reality. The fact that we're going to help others also. But, charity starts at home. Right? And if people have, let's say, family members that are struggling, that's where charity should go first. Even before anything else. Right? Before it even goes to yeshivas and girls' schools and this and that. If a person, has money, they can help out family, they should. Now you're going to say, wow, look what they're doing over here, doing terrible things. Okay, there are other issues. So let's say when I had money, I knew somebody, they had, let's say, a non-kosher franchise, of a certain place. So they opened up one that was very successful. Someone gave advice to open another one. Wasn't as successful, brought the first one down and went bankrupt. So let's say I could have helped them. Let's say, I could have helped them. But if they're going to use that money, now here's a problem. Now, if they're going to, let's say you're going to help them, and they are going to use that money for something that you can't do, that a Jew can't do, i.e., have an non-kosher restaurant franchise, let's say. So you can't help them. You have to give money to that. You have to give money, to kosher. If they're struggling and you say, okay, I can help you day to day, for a number of months, this, that, okay. Help you start a new business, a trade business, that you can't do. Right? You can't turn the Torah into a pretzel. Certain things you can't do. Right? Now, a person can jump up and down, but you have money, so why'd you help me? Now religion gets in the way. But let's say that wasn't the case. Let's say you could help them. Right? So family comes first. Before you think about anything else, family comes first. You know what they say? Chesed starts at home. Acts of loving kindness start at home. Charity starts at home. If it's a choice of helping others and helping your own family, help your own family first. Right? No question. Right? No question about that. But if at the end of the day, what's the Torah outlook? Right? That's the point of my whole group here, of pain is your gain. Right? What's the Torah outlook over here? The Torah outlook is, let's say, they could help you. Financially, emotionally, whatever. They could help you, and they don't. Right? They don't help you, let's say. You come to them, they don't help you. Now, what's the Torah outlook? The Torah outlook is they're not going to be the ones. They're not the right messenger. So you say, well, who's the right messenger? God will put the right messenger in your place, whenever that's supposed to be. But this person's not the right messenger. But they could help you and their family. And, we could have a whole laundry list of reasons why they should. And they don't. For whatever reason. So they're not the right messenger. Right? But if, a person's down and they're suffering, this and that, you say they could do something. They could. If they wanted to. Right? This is the other thing. It's the other thing that's hard. Is that, person go to someone for help, whatever it is. And they have the ability to help. And they have the ability. And they say no. I'm not doing this. Yeah, and they give you, any number of reasons that, are not, whatever, they give you bogus reasons. Why? So then, so what's your answer? You didn't expect them to help anyway, so very good, right? Deep down, you say you could have helped. You could have done something. This could have been your own haba. Even better. This is going to have been your portion of the world to come. But they say no. So the Torah outlook is you put your best foot forward. You got rejected. And when you got rejected, you realize God's the one in charge. So these people, whoever this person is, they're not the right address. Now, could God do a miracle, make them the right address? They could help you? Yeah. Doesn't have to. God's got a lot of messengers, tremendous amount of messengers. So the Torah outlook is, okay, they're not the right messengers. But a person has to believe it. And a person deep down has to realize, yeah, God can say right at this time, no, not going to get help over here. They're not going to be the address. Well, what's it going to look like? Don't know. You're still living it, right? You're still going through it. You don't know what the end's going to be. But the Torah philosophical outlook is God's the one in charge. And God's got, we say, Harbe Shluchim L'Makom. There are a lot of messengers. A lot of messengers God has at his disposal. But you know what? This one's not one of them. Not going to be one of them. Not in spiritual terms, not in physical terms. Okay. Right? Now, someone's going to say, but it's painful. They could have helped. They don't want to help. They're not empathetic. You're right, it's painful. 100%. Right? But that's also a test. Because you say, God, what do you want from me over here? This person's the perfect person to help. Not losing anything. What's the problem? He doesn't want to help. Right? So you lift your hands up to God and you say, listen, I'm putting my best foot forward. He says, yeah, but this person's not the messenger. I'm not giving him the merit to help you. Okay? So we have to realize he's the one in charge. He's got a lot of messengers. Tremendous amount of messengers. And we always say, you never know where the salvation is going to come from. You have no idea. I would say it's like God's irony in many ways. A person's down and out, this and that, all of a sudden, boom, something comes through. Totally not expected. Now, I'll give an example. Where every once during World War II went to, trying to raise money for the yeshiva that he was in, and, they're going for a very hard time. Anyway, he went to some places. They said, no, we don't give to places like this. Other places wouldn't even open the door. Other people wouldn't even open the door. All kinds of things. And, he spent money from the yeshiva. He came back with nothing. So the head of the yeshiva, Moshe Schneider, blessed memory, comes to him the next day, wants to speak to him. So Rebbe's like, all right, I'm in trouble here. Not only did I go at the expense of the yeshiva, I didn't make any money. the head of yeshiva says, Rosh Hashanah tells him, I want to give you a big yasher koach. I want to thank you. So Rebbe's like, I don't understand. I spent the yeshiva's money. I didn't even make a penny. I lost money over here. He said, we just got a donation for a tremendous amount of money. He said, he said, so Rebbe said, but it didn't come from me. I didn't bring any money. Why, why are you thanking me? So Moshe Snyder said, what are you, a heretic? He said, not because of you. You put your best foot forward. I think the money would come from you, but you know what? Because you put your best foot forward, God helped through another place. He helped you from a place didn't expect. Doesn't mean we don't put our best foot forward, but it doesn't guarantee success. It can come from something we never thought of. It can happen. You can say, I've seen it personally in many ways. Many ways. You're right. You put your best foot forward. That's our obligation. But the fact that it's going to be successful doesn't mean that. And I can say many times, I've heard from other people as well, many times the salvation came from a place they totally didn't expect. As I would say, out of left field. Totally out of left field. Sometimes, something like that will happen. Say, ha ha, very funny. It's ironic. It's very much ironic. Because we thought this would happen, that would happen, the other thing happened. You go to plan A, plan B, plan C, plan M. Nothing came through. And then all of a sudden, through the back door, something happened you didn't expect. We call that God's irony. God says, don't think I'm not here. There are plenty of ways God can do anything. Anything. We got to believe it. We got to put it into practice. Right? But the, one of the most important things is that even if we have this high expectation, we have to know and understand God can say no. And we can be disappointed. So the question is, okay, if a person's disappointed, they didn't get what they want, they didn't get close to what they want, and different things, how do they serve God the same? How do they wake up every day and say, Idu es Hashem b'simcha? They're going to serve you with great joy. You know how you're going to do that? Because you realize everything you have. Even with all the difficulty. I just read something earlier today about this idea. Even when the chips are down and things are hard and whatever, right? That's when the biggest test is. That's when the biggest test. You're going to blaspheme against me, or you're going to continue to pray with even greater fervor and be thankful for what you have. So you're going to say that's hard. I didn't say it's not a trial. It's a trial. But the main thing is, how do I view it? How do I see the bigger picture? What do I do with the bigger picture over here? That's 95% of the game here. If I understand the bigger picture, then what should bother me? I have 100% belief and faith God runs the world. And if this happens, doesn't go my way, other things will go my way. Right? And even, a person failed and something happened, doesn't mean they're bad. Depends what they did, how they did it. But in general, a bad day and things that, we lost control of and different things does not necessarily make us bad people. If we continue to act on it, do that on a regular basis, different issue. But a person just, they had a bad day. A lot of things going on, lost their cool, other things, work that they put a lot of time and effort in, and it's got flattened like a pancake. What are they going to think? They're the biggest loser in the world. It's too hard. God's going to zap me, whatever. Okay. Had a bad day. Did a lot of terrible things. Tomorrow's a new day. But you can say, how can God look at me at the same? Because we're a work in progress. We have to repent. We have to work hard. Right? But you don't throw everything out because the person had a bad day. That's what the HR wants. Exactly what the evil inclination wants. And then you start second guessing. I can't do it. And this, I get rejected. And, family and community and everything combined. Everything combined. So you don't even want to get out of bed. Now that would make perfect sense. Make absolutely perfect sense. Problem is, we as Jews or JITs or even non-Jews, we know better. We know better not to listen to evil inclination. We know better not to get ourselves in this mindset. But he's saying it's hard, okay? No one's saying life is easy. No one's saying life is easy over here. But I have to know how to deal with the ups and downs. I have to, a person has to know, whatever happens, God knows what he's doing. And God runs the world, and God has a lot of messengers. And Yeshua's Hashem Ke'eref Ayin. Salvation of God comes with the blink of an eyelid. Gotta believe it. Even as the Gemara in Brachos says, if there's a knife against your throat, even if there's a knife against your throat, God can have mercy. Now, you might die, could be, right? But God can have mercy even at that point. You can say, goes that far? Goes that far. Let's say we make the bed, we lie. It's a question of what we do. Well, see, normally we say, Devarim shebalev eino devarim. Words in my heart don't mean anything, but our minds are very powerful. Very, very powerful. It can convince us of all kinds of things based on what we hear, what we see, and just have a certain, give us a certain mentality. It's bad. Beats us down. So how are you going to clear that up? In general, Torah. Positive thought. Thinking that, I'm not what everybody thinks. I have self-esteem. I am a person. I do try and become close to God. I might fail. I might fail many times. Right? But I'm working hard. And I refuse to get beaten down in life and give up. And that, even if many things don't go our way, a person has to say, the mantra is, I'm not going anywhere. You want to make life hard? Make it hard. You want to make it harder? Make it harder. We're soldiers. We're soldiers in God's army. That's what we are. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's not. Right? But 95% of the game is in my mind. It's about what I think that causes me to act. What I think, we said before, it doesn't matter. It's what I do. But a lot of what we do is based on what we think. And we can overthink. And we can drive ourselves crazy. Thinking about this, thinking about that, thinking about the other thing. And then we don't do anything. Or we do less. Or we get paralyzed or whatever. The mind's a very powerful thing. A lot of times we have to know what to do. Then we have to put into practice. More difficult. See, there are a bunch of questions here. Let me deal with these questions here. 1 second. Someone asks, neighbors only in the Jewish community or any neighbor? Seemingly any neighbor. Right? It doesn't mean necessarily Jewish neighbors. Right? But if a person has Jewish neighbors, let's say, people go out of their way. They go out of the way for other people. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be Jews over here. They're being, non-Jews could do the same thing. Non-Jews can go out of the way for their neighbors. Now, you see in the neighborhood, a mixture, you can have, better relationships with non-Jews or not. Right? Some of them, there are some that won't give you time of day. I'm not saying they're anti-Semitic. We'll keep this easy. Right? They just don't want to get involved. There are people like that. They don't have anything to do with, anyone else. They're in their own bubble. So they say, well, maybe a lot of people like that. Maybe. I haven't taken a survey of neighborhoods. What people do, what they don't. Right? But in general, the idea is neighbors should want to help one another. They're always around. Now, the dynamics could be totally different. 100%. But, it depends. There are some people willing to get involved, willing to help, this, that, whatever they can do. Other people get less involved. Some people more involved. Some people not involved at all. But the point is that neighbors are around. If you're talking about a Jewish neighborhood, and they're all Jews around. I'll make it easy. They're all Orthodox Jews. Yeah, people help each other out. We think the same, more or less, going in the same direction. But, does that mean across the board? Not necessarily, but if you have the same values, people do what they can do to help. I don't think people are that shallow that they won't. But if they have the same values, they should. So I can't say non-Jews have those values. All right? But, even a non-Jewish neighborhood, don't neighbors get along and get together, this and that? So they say maybe sometimes, again, depends on the neighborhood, depends on the people. Right? But in general, the point is that they're around. They're around more, so you can lean on them more because, they're around. But if they, so a person will say, but they don't have the same values we do. Could be. So they might be less likely to help. Okay. Could very well be. Right? I'm not going to disagree with that. Could very well be. Right? Jews should have the same values. Right? Orthodox Jews should have the same values. So they'll do whatever they can to help. Does that mean everyone's going to jump in? No, doesn't mean that. It means they do what they can do. Someone asks, what if you don't receive any help from your neighbor? Okay. Right? But you ask them anytime they ask your help. But you help them. Yeah, that's kind of a hard thing. I did write an article, earlier about sibling relationships. Right? Relationships between brothers, sisters, and, people are busy, they have families, different things. And so siblings don't necessarily speak to each other that often. They may see each other every once in a while, if they live in the same city. They may see each other, once in a while or during the holidays or whatever, but they don't see each other very much. So how do they keep in touch? Usually by phone. Maybe the WhatsApp, maybe the text, whatever, whatever it is. Well, what happens, and this was the question, what happens if it's a one-way street? In other words, one sibling goes out of their way, to contact, another sibling. They know the other sibling does, they'll answer them, usually this, that, but they don't initiate. So people say, well, isn't that frustrating? You put all this effort in and they don't reciprocate. They'll answer you this, that. They'll talk to you this, that, but, they don't call you. So it's called a one-way street. Now, some people will say, you don't call me back. You don't initiate. Why should I have any relationship with you? Yeah, I understand people are busy. This, that, show effort. There are some people out there don't make phone calls. Don't necessarily send emails or texts or whatever. They're just not in touch. They're not good at being in touch. So now it depends on the other person. The other person's also busy. Plenty of things going on in their life. So you could say, well, this person has a choice. They're the one who makes all the effort. So why should I make the effort? Why should they make the effort? What do they get from it? They still have a relationship. They still get along. So there is something they get out of it. But anyone who's ever been in a one-sided relationship, they know it's aggravating. Heard someone recently tell me, yeah, this person, I only spoke to the phone, never saw them. Another person, they never even picked up the phone. I always called them. Okay. It's aggravating. The question is that relationship worth it or not? Now, if it's a friendship and it's one-sided, you have to see, is that relationship worth keeping? Doesn't mean you don't get along when you speak. It's just they won't pick up the phone. That's just not what they do. Okay? What if it's a sibling? What if it's a sibling? They don't pick up the phone. It's not what they do. You like being with them, hanging out with them, whatever, but they don't pick up the phone. So question is, that's who they are. That's their mentality. They're just not going to do it. It's aggravating. Anyone's been in such a situation, they know it's aggravating. Question is that relationship worth keeping? So they'll say, of course, we get along very well, all these things, very good. It's just, that's a quirk that they have. They don't pick up the phone. They don't initiate. Is that enough to throw the relationship out the window? I wouldn't say that. Is it aggravating? Oh, it can be aggravating. Definitely can be aggravating. We all have bad character traits. Whatever they are. Here they get along. They like to see each other. When they speak to each other, they have great conversations. Okay. It's just the other person never initiates. And if they wouldn't call them, they never hear from them except see them every, once in a blue moon. Right? So someone will say, is that relationship worthwhile to keep up? So you have to ask the question to yourself. If you get along and this and that and everything's good, that's just something they don't do. The question is, how much does that bother you? Does it bother you enough you just don't have anything to do with them? Or you just get annoyed, but you do it anyway. Right? So some people say they'll do it anyway. It just, keeps up family relationships, it's better, etc. Another person can say, you don't call me, forget it. Why am I wasting my time? It's going to be awkward. Family function. You don't speak, unless you see them in person. Okay? Right? I mean, you don't necessarily get along. It's just, it makes it worse in different ways. I would say in such a situation, if a person can deal with it, they should keep it up. There's no reason why not to. For that little aggravation, you still get along. It's worth it. But I could understand someone say, I'm fed up. I put in all this effort, I get nothing. Family relationships are very tricky. Even if you're dealing with religious people, it's very tricky. A person has son-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, and you see things that they do that you don't necessarily like. There's a saying, when a child gets married, the two things you have to do. One is you have to have an open pocket. In other words, help them whenever you can help them. The second thing is you got to learn to keep your mouth shut. So I got 2 strikes against me. Not so much money in my pocket and a big mouth. Right? But people told me this years ago. So my daughters got married. I told every one of my son-in-laws, my daughter walks down that aisle, she encircles you, you're under the canopy, she's all yours. She's all yours. In other words, you deal with her. If there are issues, you deal with them. I don't need to hear about them. If I need to get involved for something, I'll get involved, but you don't want me getting involved. So someone said, you really said that? I said, yeah. I'm here to help whatever I can do to help. Right? I'm not here to get involved. And there are dynamics where when the parents or grandparents get involved, they ruin the relationship. The first case I ever heard, I was at my Rebbe, in the rabbinical court, with a very, very messy divorce case. Parents were there, grandparents were there, yelling and screaming, this and that. They told everyone to wait outside. They brought in someone to the back door. Someone, could help the situation. And they asked him, can you help the situation? They said, yeah. The only problem is everyone's interfering. If everyone would interfere, I could help over here. So, there's enough stress we have. When people stick their noses in where it doesn't belong, that's going to cause damage. Definitely it will cause damage. There are people who don't know boundaries. They should. Secular world. Secular world, they wouldn't know these things. They think I have a right to say what I want, and if you don't like it, too bad. Go eat kugels, my Rebbe would say. You don't like it, too bad. That's not gonna bode well for that type of relationship. So saying even in religious circles, you can have issues. You can have issues between brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, parents and their children, different things and how they educate their kids and what they do, and and cause a lot of problems. Now, if they're more serious problems, different things, then yeah, parent might have to get involved. May have to get involved. But, if you don't have to, you don't. They're old enough to get married. Let them deal with it, unless it's something, it needs to be dealt with. Whatever the case is, but it can also cause a lot of problems. And read a lot of stories. Some sadder than others, but yeah. Parents or in-laws get involved where they shouldn't get along, they can ruin the marriage. Pit their kid against the other one, and it can cause all kinds of problems and stress that you don't need. You got enough problems, right? Certainly don't need that. But it happens because these cases come up, and it's whatever, it's very sad, but there's stress. There's enough stress, in a normal marriage. Everything that's seemingly going okay. This is added stress a person doesn't need. And there are people that'll say, I have a right to say what I want. You don't. Gotta let your kids work things out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the difficulties that you see. It's not your life to live. Different issues. Someone, there's addiction, there are other problems, whatever. Okay, then you might have to get involved. But in general, sometimes you just got to watch. And you can't say anything. Even if it's hard, because that's going to cause more problems. Then you end up alienating somebody, and that makes it 10 times worse. 10 times worse. But listen, there are things that happen we don't expect, or other things that, again, a parent, it's out of their hands. It's out of their hands. And they got to learn to let go. If it should be where parent has to get involved, okay, there are ways to do it. Definitely ways. You don't want to, alienate a child or daughter-in-law or son-in-law or whatever. I mean, you got to be careful. You definitely have to be careful. And even if we wouldn't, let's say, we wouldn't raise our kids in a certain way, and they decide that's what they're going to, okay, that's their choice. People make choices. You can tell them. Maybe there'll be certain repercussions. And you can say, you can make your own choices. Okay. But that's about as far as it goes. If they ask you advice, different things, that's another issue. If they ask you, like I said, I told all my son-in-laws, you got questions, I'm here. Otherwise, I'm not getting involved. They come, they have a good time, we schmooze, this, that. That's the way it should be. Right? I should get involved, okay. So maybe I'll make fun of them who they voted for. Which I did last night a little bit. Whatever, okay. Right? But it should be, open door. Should be able to come, schmooze, this, that. I'm going to get involved. Why should I get involved for? I don't need to get involved. If I need to get involved and I need to help and this, okay. But we're not asking for that. It's only going to cause problems, in different ways. But there is a thing. I'm just going to throw this out there, right? I know there are a lot of questions here. I'll get to them. Now, there is a thing where, parents marry off their kids. And kids have certain expectations. Some kids have certain expectations. I want this, I want that. Well, guess what? Parent doesn't have budget for it. So a friend of mine, daughter wanted a certain wig, or whatever, extremely expensive. Says, you work for it, I'll pay a certain amount, you pay the rest. This is what I'm paying. Right? My wife doesn't have that, your mother doesn't have that, that expensive, whatever. You want it? Fine. I'll tell you how much I was willing to pay. That's what I'm willing to pay. You want to pay the difference? Okay. Right? There's a certain thing today where, some people think they have it coming. Parents are going to buy them an apartment. They're going to do other things. And there are people who put themselves tremendously into debt to do that. Okay. Right? So someone says, what do you do if you have no money? How are you gonna marry off your kids? Because you marry off kids in certain families that are just like yours. And all my kids pretty much married in similar families. Some a little bit, better financially, not better financially, whatever, but similar, like-minded people. Right? And thank God everything's good. Went to, one of my daughter's in-laws last night. Whatever, it's very nice. Kids are blended. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing because we come from similar backgrounds. Whatever, though, it's very nice. That's how it works. If a person wants to overextend themselves and who knows what, promise things and they'll produce, putting themselves seriously in the debt. Okay, people do it. Not going to happen to me. I tell my kids, listen, when I have and whatever, fine. If not, it's the way it is. So, thank God they're not demanding. There are other kids that are. And say, I have it coming. That's what I want. Blah, blah, blah. So, who said you have right to demand? Put your parents in a debt in the poorhouse and this and that because you're demanding. Who says? Who said you have it coming? Well, we're living in a cream puff generation. I have it coming. What do you mean you have it coming? If I had the money, yeah, beautiful. If I don't have the money, it's the way it is. What are you gonna do? Right? Someone told me I got a lot of girls. Tell me how you married off your kids. I said straight out, you're gonna marry into families like your own. No demands, or very few demands. Different things, and that's the way it's gonna go, and that's the way it's going. So with my kids, I know other people similar, in that situation. So no process is pretty miraculous anyway. But at the end of the day, this is when kids get married, it's a whole thing. And it's hard. It's hard to watch kids do things that you don't like, but you gotta deal with it. It's a hard thing. Someone here asks, also for Noahites to help family first, even if they're anti-Semites. Oh, so that gets into a whole problem. Are you obligated to, to help people, even if they're members of your family that are anti-Semites and they hate Torah and they hate Judaism? So for a Jew, right? So we'll say for a Jew first. Let's say a Jew intermarries. If a Jew intermarries, he's got the status of a non-Jew. He's not a part of your family, technically. They'll say blood is thicker than water. I don't care. Once a person intermarries, different issue, right? They desecrate Shabbos in public. No, they have a status of a non-Jew. Now, does that mean even if they're evil? This is the question, right? Especially with their parents. Even if they're evil, do I have an obligation to help them? Difference of opinion. Two opinions, right? Honor, right? According to one opinion, you don't have to, a parent who's evil, you don't have to honor them. In other words, they walk in a room, for a Jew, you don't have to stand up for them. Now, does that mean if they're evil, does that mean that, so I don't have to honor them? Can I embarrass them? Can I make fun of them? Let's say. No. Those things still apply. Now, it doesn't mean I have to honor them. I have to stand up for them when they walk into a room. It doesn't mean, though, I can also say whatever I want against them, per se. Meaning, I can embarrass them in public. They're not allowed to do. Even if they're evil. Right? Even if you're going to say there's no obligation to honor them. Still have to show a certain level of respect. Brought you into this world. But, everyone's going to tell me that's a hard thing to do. You're right. The other opinion is you have to honor them anyway. You have to honor them anyway. They walk in a room, you have to stand up for them. But you'll say they hate Judaism. Right? It's Jews. Get to non-Jews in a second. But it's Jews. They hate Torah. They hate Judaism. They make fun of you every second. There's still a certain level of respect you have to have. Right? So you have to honor them. right? And let's say they were down. And let's say financially you had to help support them. So that's what you have to do, right? Even if they're evil. That's what it sounds like. That's what you got to do. So people are going to say, come on, that seems impossible. Yeah. Honoring parents, probably one of the hardest mitzvahs to do. Probably one of the hardest mitzvahs to do. The Gemara tells stories. Different rabbis, a certain rabbi, his mother like spit on him, through his wallet or whatever, threw it in the river. Can't say anything. Can't say anything. The other day, Rabbi Yochanan says, glad he didn't have parents. My mother died in childbirth. His father died before that, and he's glad he didn't have parents. Why? He said, how am I going to be able to, to uphold the obligation of honoring parents? Right? So what if they're, okay, so now the question is, what about a Noahide over here? What about a non-Jew? Do we say families first if they're anti-Semites? So it depends. In other words, if they're in dire straits, you're the only one can help them, you should help them. You're right, but they're anti-Semites. Okay. Could be. You help them, you save them, whatever it is, maybe their attitude will change. So someone will say, maybe it won't. Maybe they'll stay that way. Okay. Maybe, but family, yeah. In that sense, if it's parents, yeah. Now, what about siblings? What about siblings who are anti-Semites? Do I have an obligation to help them or save them? Not necessarily. You're going to say family comes first. You're right. Right? But if you could help them, let's say financially, and that money's going to, something forbidden, you can't. You're not allowed to help them. Not only that, it's forbidden to help them. So you can help them in other ways. Okay, there are certain people who just, have a certain attitude. They don't have anything to do with family. So even if they're down and they're out, whatever, and you want to help them, you call up other people in their family. You say, listen, I want to help this, that. The person says, drop dead. I don't have anything to do with you. You don't have an obligation. Let's say they need life, life-threatening surgery. They don't get the surgery, they'll die. They don't have the right coverage, whatever. They don't have money for it. So you say, I'm willing to pay the money for your surgery. All right? And they tell you, go to hell. Could say that. I want your money. I don't want your help. Blah, 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 whatever it is. Do you have an obligation to try and convince them? No. You don't have an obligation. You don't have an obligation to help them. All right? If they don't want to help themselves, what can you do? Is that going to be held against you? Maybe you should try to go to the end of the earth, try and convince them. You don't have to. You don't have to. There's an obligation. There's an obligation, for a Jew that, two people, let's say their animals are burdened with a heavy load, and they're both, the animals like being crushed by this load. One person is like one of your closest friends. The other person, you can't stand. One of your worst enemies. So the Gemara asks the question, who do you help first? The animal that's being crushed, do you help? Because you have to help unload the burden, the Torah says, right? To ease the burden. So who do you help first? The person you love or the person you hate? What would be the obvious answer? Person you love. Person you love, you're going to run right away. You're going to help the animal, blah, blah, blah. That's not what the Gemara says. Right? What does the Gemara say? The Gemara says you help the person that you hate. You help the person that you hate first. Why? What's the reason? To overcome your evil inclination. So you're going to say, Rabbi, come on. You can't stand this person. They did something, who knows what. You've been angry at them for years. You don't have anything to do with them. You don't even wish them good Shabbos when you see them. You walk the other way. You can't stand this person. comes on the Gemara and says, you got to work on your evil inclination. You help that person first. Right? Just throw this out there also. So it says for Victor Miller, blessed memory, one of the Torah giants of the last generation. Right? Come to synagogue. Let's say, person annoys you to no end. Every day he's there. Maybe he comes late and, he's talking in the middle of prayers and other things, like totally annoys you. So Victor Miller says, I'm going to teach you a lesson. You can even love such a person. You're going to say, come on, the person's, a total nudnik, drives me nuts, during prayers. He says, I'm going to show you how you can love such a person. You got to look at the good. Look at the good. He's there every day. It's consistent. Yeah, you're right. Maybe he doesn't pray the way he should. Maybe he talks too much. A lot of other things. Find the good. Focus on the good. When you focus on the good, it's a different issue. So you're going to say, well, when it comes to family, they're anti-Semites, whether it's parents or siblings, you're going to say it's very hard to find the good. Okay? I'm not going to disagree. Maybe very hard to find the good. But at the same time, when it comes to family, I'll say like this. If God forbid there's a fire, if God forbid there's a fire in a person's house, and a person had, their beloved student was staying with them, and this fire is blazing, who's the person going to save first? His student or his son? Maybe his son doesn't have such a good connection to. Maybe his son went off, whatever it is. Let's say they don't have a good relationship. The student's not getting saved first. 100% is not getting saved first. It won't even be an afterthought. Why won't it be an afterthought? Family comes first. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You disagree with them. They're anti-Semites, this, that. If God forbid there was a fire, you'd pluck them out of the fire. You're not going to let them die. Now, some people say, I hate them so much, I'll let them die. Okay. It could be. There are some people have that type of relationship. Could very well be. Right? But for a close family member in general, you're going to pluck them out. You're going to do whatever you can to save them. And even if it's someone who you love 10 times more, that was at the same place. You're very close, this and that. Your family, you're going to save first. If you can save everyone together, very good. If you can't, in most cases, your family's going to come first. Right? I don't think there's any question. Because they're your blood. You'll say blood is thicker than water, doesn't mean anything. Yeah, when it comes to something like this, yeah, family's going to come first. Right? So someone asks, okay, by non-Jew, by Noahide over here. So if you had no opportunity, if they're in dire straits, and you can help them, right? For a Jew, you got an obligation to help financially, right? That's honoring parents. Even if they're evil, they're in dire straits, you have to help them. You have to give them their needs because they brought you into this world. You're going to say they don't believe that this or that, the other thing. Okay. They might have said terrible things also. Your relationship might be strained, but you know what? You're not going to leave them in the lurch. You're not going to be like the Romans or the Greeks. The parents got older. They took them up to a mountain and said, Mom, Dad's been real. See ya. They left them up there to die. We're not cruel. You're going to overlook that. But first thing I'm going to say, it's very hard. You're right. You're right, but that's our obligation. Someone asked, isn't unmet expectations the biggest problem in all relationships in between us and God? That we expect God to do something and he doesn't. Again, it's between man and man and God. Man and God might be worse in a certain way. Because here, most people in general, if they change their lives, they want to be a Noahide or a JIT, right? A Jew in training, or they're going to convert, whatever it is. Once they start that process, life takes a different turn. Totally different turn. Why? Why isn't most people, start the conversion process, a lot of things go wrong. Even before, let's say, they move to a community. Why? Because now you have higher expectations. God has higher expectations. Comes along the Korban Aron in Leviticus chapter 11, right? That Korban Aron says that Or Chaim HaKadosh brings him down. Or Chaim HaKadosh, blessed memory, by the death of Nadav and Avihu. Says the Korban Aron, why they died. So a lot of different reasons that the Torah gives. Point is, they're held to a higher standard. So the Korban Aron says, when you're closest to the king, punishment's much more severe. So now you just change your mentality, you change your outlook. You want to live your life a totally spiritual way now. You're going in the right direction. God says, okay, now we're going to change how I deal with you. You're going to say, what do you mean? Just because before the most important question I ever asked was I put mustard or ketchup on my hot dog. So now you're holding it at a different level. God says, very good. God says, very good over here. So you're going to be held to a different standard now. Because now you know better. Now you're going in a different direction. But now you're held more accountable. So you say, well, better I'm not held more accountable. But if you have the opportunity to grow and do the right thing, guess what? You're going to be held to a more higher standard. Right? Because if not, what's God going to say? You could have reached this level, that level, you were lazy. So it's held against you either way. Right? So we expect wrongly, and this is part of what our outlook should be, according to the Torah. We expect, we pray, God takes care of our needs. We need this, we need that, we need the other thing. And we expect God's going to answer us yes at all times. We're going to the right path. We're trying hard. Why shouldn't we get our prayers answered? Right? In other words, we expect God to do something. That's the question. We expect God to do something and he doesn't do it. So why should we expect? Why should we expect anything here? You can say, what do you mean? God is all good. Does he want good for me? Sure. Right? But we have to realize what we think is good, for God, it might not be good. So God doesn't give it. Right? In duties of the hearts, I read this out. Put it on, pain is your gain. Right? See if I find it here. Duties of the hearts. Right, it says the Pirke Avos over here. He says, as anyone who saw the video, just rehash it here. He says, you know what's best for me and the ways in which I should be guided. But he says, if I should ask you my ignorance for something that is not good for me or of no benefit to me, we think it's good. God doesn't necessarily think it's good. What do we say? Your exalted choice is better than my choice. In other words, I'm going to rely on you. But you know what's best for me. What's the problem? What's the obvious problem? We think we know what's better. We 100% think we know what's better. If we think we know what's better, that means we're saying God's not doing his job. And if we say God's not doing his job, we're in trouble. We are in serious trouble. Because what are the things, let's say someone's causing us damage, and we pray in the Shemona Esrei, right? We pray in the Shemona Esrei that silent meditation, whatever you want to call it, we pray for our needs. And one of those needs is that God does justice. So what do? We say, fine. We understand we want to bring justice back to the world. We need a temple and all that. But God, we want you to take care of business. We want you to judge properly. Okay, so what do we say? This person caused me damage. I want you to take care of it. And let's say we're justified 150%. We're justified what this person did. So Gemara says God's going to open your file first. Why? Why is he going to open my file? This person caused me damage. We don't want our file opened except on Yom Kippur, or in Rosh Hashanah. God's going to judge us. It's the only time of the year we want it open. Why am I going to get it open over here? You know why you're going to get it open? Because God says, oh, you want me to, one possible answer. You want me to take care of business over here. You're telling me to do judgment with this person. I sent this person for you. I sent him to cause you pain. He's just a messenger. You're right. He did a terrible thing. Okay. God says, what? You don't think I'm going to take care of him? So what essentially is going on? You're lacking in emunah. You're lacking in faith and belief in God. So God opens your file first. You got to say, it's not fair. This person caused me damage. Yeah, but what's the outlook? What's the outlook over here? The outlook is God uses the person as a messenger. True? So you're saying he's not taking care of business. That's a lack of faith. So God opens your file first. So yeah, we expect God to do certain things. You know what? We don't know what the scorecard is. We said before, as the Chovos HaLevavos says. Chovos HaLevavos says over there, God knows what he's doing. Our faith in him is he knows what he's doing. And if God says no, it means he doesn't want you to have it, or you're going to be delayed in getting it, or you may never get it. And God still wants you to, wants your prayers. Doesn't mean he has to give you what you want, right? If we make mistakes and we say, I need this, I need that, and God says, no, you don't. So our mantra is God's going to do what he needs to do, and we have perfect faith. He knows what he's doing. Even if we ask for the wrong things, he'll give us what we need. Even if we think we don't. Even if we think we need more, whatever it is. So yeah, we have certain expectations. But who says our expectations are right? I can understand more between man and man. You're relying on someone to help you. They don't help you. Or they don't help you as much or whatever. Right? That's the whole thing. How are you going to react? You're right. It's worse if it's God. And we have certain expectations. Our expectation should be, God, you owe me nothing. You gave me life. You give me life on a daily basis. You take care of my needs. Right? So we think we need this, we need that. Okay. Maybe we do. But does God really owe us anything? Right? So the question is, well, don't we expect certain things? We can expect it. Doesn't mean we should. Right? It's a big difference. Expecting something, not getting it, who says we deserve it? Maybe we're expecting things we don't deserve. If we're expecting things we don't deserve, God's going to say, no, you don't deserve it. You have to have faith. I know what I'm doing. So that's hard. That's true. But see, we have to change our mentality. Who says I should get what God wants? Who says I should get it? We think we deserve it. We think, for whatever reason. Maybe. Guess what? God may think otherwise. I thought something a few weeks ago about a certain thing. Like I said, I don't know where this thing's going yet, 100%. But I would have expected, okay. I expected something. Didn't happen. It may not happen. Probably odds are it's probably not going to happen. Who knows? Whatever God wants. But what we expect, certainly from people, God's a whole different issue. But certainly from people, you think, come on, isn't this obvious? There's something right in front of your face. Obvious. It just goes right over their head. Oh, I never thought of that. Well, it's too late now. Might be. Might be too late. So I can say, but you didn't even think about it. How do you not think about it? What, you don't care? It didn't even dawn on them. Right? Am I shocked? No. Totally not shocked. Right? But it didn't dawn on them. Okay. Can I change that mentality? I'm not going to change that mentality. Right? If something can be undone, let's see. Let's see if it can be undone. If it can be undone, that's a different issue. Then now it's a question of mentality change, which that could happen. See, right? Was I shocked they did certain things? No, I wasn't shocked. A little bit miffed, but I wasn't shocked. Because you have to be holding somewhere in the world. Our goal is we should be doing whatever we can to help other people. Whatever we can do goes a long way in heaven. In fact, we can help others. Whatever we can do, even something small. That doesn't necessarily be financial, whatever. You do something small, it goes a big way because you're giving of yourself. Because someone's got to say there are people that don't want to give of themselves. You're right. 100%. It's their choice. Someone say, well, you can't expect anything. It's their choice. You're right. It's their choice. 100%. So people can do what they want. If they have a merit, very good. If they don't have a merit, can't bring the person to drink. Right? But it's a foreign mentality. How do you convince someone of a foreign mentality? Or mentality that has to do with Torah and mitzvahs? Can't necessarily. Maybe begrudgingly, this, that, make them feel guilty. Who knows what? Can't bring them to drink. You tell me this is an obvious thing. Makes perfect sense. The Talmudic dictum, zen ender, zen chaser. This person benefits, the other person doesn't lose out. So if you don't lose out, why wouldn't they do it? They gotta, what we say here in Israel, a juk barosh. They have like a cockroach in their minds. They have like a crazy thing in their head. These things they don't do. Why not? You don't lack in anything. You don't lose over here. You only gain. Right? It's not a loss. Nobody loses out. Doesn't matter. It's ironic. It doesn't matter. Right? And you sit there and you pull out the hair you don't have in your head. And you're like, come on, this is obvious. No, it's not. Because you don't have that mentality, you don't have it. You can acquire it. You can work hard to get it. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. So yeah, I was a little bit miffed, but it wasn't unexpected. Wasn't unexpected. A few other things a little more unexpected. Okay, this was not unexpected. But it's an obvious thing. If you're thinking, if you have that mentality. You don't have that mentality, what can you do? You can try and convince them. But like I said, it's just ironic. Because, I see the person's face. But they just didn't react at all. And then after that, I said a few other things. Totally different topic. Totally different topic. Like what I said before, didn't matter. But you're not losing anything. There's no loss. If for someone else can help them, tremendous. No, it's not on the radar. So what do you do if it's not on the radar? Not much. Not much you can do. Listen, story's not over yet. We'll see. Well, we'll see what God does over you. But again, if a person has the ability, they have the eyes to see, they'll see. If they don't want to, they won't. They may say, well, it's a good point, but, not doing anything about it. What, it's ironic. They say, God, what do you want over here? There's a golden opportunity. Golden opportunity. No. Yeah, okay, we'll see. Story's not over yet. We'll see. But it's mind-boggling. Am I shocked? No. I'm not shocked because the mentality is totally different. It's a totally different mentality. So two people can see the same thing, come on with two different conclusions. Okay. Right? But you can say, come on, no one loses over here. Nobody loses. But, then the other side, I get more certain. I can't expect. You're right, I can't expect. 100%. People can do whatever they want. Okay. I made a pitch. Didn't go anywhere. Totally, didn't go anywhere. It's a perfect thing in general. They didn't want. Okay, we'll see. Like I said, it's not over yet. But, at the end of the day, God runs the world. See, I'm listening to my own Musa. God runs the world. He's in charge. That's it. The person will either be a messenger or they won't be. Okay? But there are a lot of ramifications. Because of it, okay, we'll see. We'll see what's going to be. Someone asks, is that why Job's friends didn't speak to him for 7 days? Job's friends aren't that friends like that, telling him, you probably did this, you probably did that, probably did the other thing. Right? But yeah, the whole thing over there. Not speaking to him. Job understands he's going through a hard time. Lost his family, lost his wealth, in pain. Right? And a lot of pain over here. So not like they sort of helped him, but he's relying on people to help to a certain extent. Like he got let down. I don't think there's any question about that. Right, in many ways. So, they want to have nothing to do with him because of it. I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily because of that. But yeah, people can fall off the face of the map because, you wanted something from them or whatever. They didn't help you and they just say, well, I can't help you. What do you want? Like, why are you even going to get upset about it? Someone asks, can you be too empathetic? No, I don't think you can be too empathetic. I just know people that are not empathetic, like zero empathy, or maybe a drop. Being too empathetic, I think is, I don't think it's a bad thing. You just got to be careful. Because a person's too empathetic, then a lot of emotion gets involved. And when a lot of emotion gets involved, you don't think straight. You got to have a head on your shoulders, and, emotion can totally take over against rationale. That a person has to be careful of. But being too empathetic, in general, it's just you get emotionally involved. That's not necessarily so healthy. Right? You have to have, a certain level of empathy. But that empathy could destroy a person also. Because you really feel bad, but you can't help and you're stuck and you got no one to help you over here. It's hard. It can make things worse in a certain way. Right? Empathy is definitely a good thing, even if you don't say anything, you just listen. You validate. When it comes to friendships, different things, people may not be looking for an answer. They want validation. Right? This is probably something I should speak about more at length. Spoke about it earlier. People who become religious or become Noahites or whatever, they want to show it to their family, show it to their friends, and they get slapped upside the head many times. They get rejected. They get made fun of, different things. Okay, so they understand they can't convince them they're not interested. Okay. But at least they should show a little bit of respect for what you do. Everybody wants validation. Just to feel good about what they do. Right? But when it comes to these type of things, I would say a person should realize if they get any validation, that's very good. But don't expect any validation. Now that's a hard thing. I would 100% agree. It's a hard thing. I don't think there's any question. Because if a person expects it, they don't get it. Not only that, they get trampled on and made fun of. It's hard. It's hard. That's why we shouldn't expect validation. If we get it, very good. But someone's going to say, but it has to be so negative. No, it doesn't. But it can be. That's where it's painful. Is that it can be absolutely negative. And you just, every time you open your mouth, you get slammed. So, that's not so much fun. So you're going to say, but his family and his parents and his siblings, and you're right. Right? So at some point, either, you got to keep telling them, change the subject. I'm not interested. Right? We can agree to disagree and move on. But some people don't do that. They just keep coming and coming and coming. So, a person has to limit any of these conversations or any contact. Not saying across the board, but in general. You can't do it. It's just, you're not going to do it. You're not going to accomplish anything. It's going to make fun of you more. It's going to make life more difficult. So it's harder. But to expect any validation, I would say you'd be lucky if you get it. Be lucky. And if people come around, very good. If not, expect it. Right? It doesn't have to be so terrible, but yeah, it's gonna be hard. Definitely gonna be hard. 1 second. There's some questions here. Someone asked, what are the descendants of the Bnei Anusim supposed to do when they find out they are crypto Jews? The question is, are they really Jewish? Are they really Jewish over here? So if they find out really, they're, through their grandmother on their mother's side, they were Jewish, then they're Jewish, right? Then, then they have to learn what it means to be a Jew. If they're not Jewish per se, if they know for sure they're not Jewish, but they come from Jews, then, they have a choice whether they should go through conversion or not. Right? 100%. But if they're Jews, then they should learn about Judaism. They should learn what their obligations are. Right? So it could be some of these Bnei Anusim, we call these crypto Jews, that, they don't have proof. They don't have proof either way. Right? In other words, they can't produce any proof that they're Jewish. They may very well be Jewish. So if they are Jewish, or let's say they can't prove it, then they should go through conversion. Right? They don't necessarily have to. Because if they don't have the proof, then they could stay a non-Jew. They could be a Noahide. Right? Plenty what to learn, even as a Noahide. But if they find out that, there's a good possibility that they are Jews, they have no proof, they can make a choice. They can make a choice whether to convert or not. Someone that points out, very true. Sometimes things look negative. We don't have the hindsight, right? God hasn't opened our eyes. We don't understand why. A lot of things, many, many things like that. We can only see things after the fact, not while we go through it. So some things look bad can really be a blessing in disguise, right? Sometimes we only see that, many years later. And as someone here points out also, good deeds that we do, we never know how far they go, right? Also true. Right? We don't know how powerful they are, what they save us from. Also true. Also very true. Someone asks, are there any exceptions to be able to pray in the bathroom? No. Right, let's say you get injured. Can you pray for help? I don't know. I don't think you're allowed to. Even if you're injured. Even if you're injured. Well, how far does that go? How far does that go? Even in general, a person can't, even if a person's injured in the bathroom, they can certainly call for help, right? If they're able to. I don't think there's any question about that. Praying, might be, it's a different issue. Right, a totally different issue. Even if the bathroom's clean, doesn't matter. Right? I don't know if that matters. Right? It doesn't matter if they've been injured or not. Right? Crying out for help, yeah. That you can do. Praying to God to help you, it's a different issue. Someone asked, would you help a Jew first even when you're non-Jewish? Again, family comes first. Right? I would say, a non-Jew, if they're in the process of conversion, help Jews first. Do non-Jews in general have to help Jews first? No, not necessarily. They should help Jews. I don't think there's any question. But they, if it's a matter of helping them first or non-Jews, they don't have an obligation. They don't have an obligation. Even a JIT, Jew in training, I wouldn't say has an obligation per se. Once they become Jewish, different issue. It's a different issue. Someone asks, if you buy products from Israel, would I be supporting a business in Israel? Or are they paying taxes to secular government? One thing you got to be careful of is that if there's produce, let's say Jaffa oranges. There are people who like to support Israel, they buy Jaffa oranges. Problem with Jaffa oranges is that when they're sent out of Israel, they should be, but they're not. They should be tithed. Why? Because they grow in the land, right? Any food that grows in the land in general, the land of Israel should be tithed. Now, if they're not tithed, the Jew can't eat them unless they tithe it themselves. So I do know of some Jews that are very big in supporting Israel, right? Secular Jews. And, Jaffa oranges, other things, they'll eat. Someone told me that. Yeah, Jaffa oranges, I'll eat a lot of them, this and that. It's a problem. For a Jew, it's a problem. Why? Because they don't tithe from it. When they send it out, they should. Chief Rabbinate should. They don't. It's a known thing that they don't. So if they don't, problem is the Jew can't eat it. They have to tithe it first. Right? So for a non-Jew, non-Jew doesn't have a problem. So buying Israeli products, it helps support, definitely helps support Israel. But you'll say, well, doesn't that money go to taxes and other? Yeah, but it helps support anyway. Right? It doesn't matter if it goes to taxes or whatever. Some people say I'm not going to support Israel because, the government's corrupt and, it's only secular, looking out for their own interests. Okay. But does it help to support the economy? Sure. A lot of money, people open up businesses. That's why they say, how do you make $2 million in Israel? You bring $1 million with you, right? Why? Because, taxes are very high. So the tax authority knows, why do they, why do they check people a lot? Because they know people are probably hiding money. Because whatever money they're making, taxes are high. Taxes are high. So they know people are probably hiding money. Right? I'm not gonna say you're allowed to, but you make money, you gotta pay taxes. You're right, taxes are high. Okay. Doesn't mean you're allowed to hide money over here. Right? But if you're supporting the economy, you're right. Some of the money is going to go to taxes. Some of the money go to other things, but it's helping support the economy. So, just because it goes to other things doesn't mean you're not, supporting it. I would say like, if a person's paying, let's say, like here in Israel, they're paying municipality tax, right, on an apartment. Let's say, if a person rents, so they have to pay that. Interesting, the owner doesn't pay, the renter pays. In the States and other places, it's the opposite. Whoever owns the property pays tax on, not the renter. But, the municipality can, use money for all kinds of things that are things that we don't support. But you got to pay them. You got to pay them. So people would say, yeah, I'm paying this money and supporting soccer stadiums or supporting other things, but you still have to pay it. Right? There's really no way around it unless you get, let's say, you don't make enough money, so you get tremendous, reduction on it, but you don't get away not paying it. Right? So, there are certain things, you might have to pay that you don't like where the money goes, but you don't really have a choice. Right? You're going to say, you're supporting it. Well, what are you supposed to do? Right? I didn't ask. I didn't ask to, that some of that money should plant more trees so Arabs can burn them down, right? Or support more soccer stadiums or other things. But that's, that's where some of the money goes. In some places. So what are you gonna say? I'm not gonna pay taxes because of it. Not gonna pay these taxes. You gotta pay it, otherwise they'll shut off your water, right? Do other things. So we might not be happy where it goes, but you don't have a choice in many ways. It's prohibition of praying against the bath, praying in the bathroom with the vocal prayers and mental prayers. Same thing. Either way. Even mental prayers, that's prayer. Right? Even, what do we call, what is prayer called? Devoted Shabbat, service of the heart. Now, normally prayer, you'll say you have to enunciate it, right? At least so you can hear it, but it doesn't, in your mind also. Prayer can be in your mind also. So if it's in your mind, you can't think Torah thoughts either, even if you don't say it. Right? Same thing. Right? You can't think any Torah thoughts in the bathroom. Someone asks, in both cases, why we not help the closest person first, enemy or not? Because very simple. No matter who's closest or not. Question is, two animals are being crushed. One could be 200 feet away, a meter away, 200 meters away, whatever it is, and one closer, irrelevant. The one closer to you is the one you hate, is your enemy. Doesn't matter, what vicinity, how close it is, right? But that's the one you hate more. And the one you like more is further away. So what are you going to do? You're going to have the one you like better. That's what you're going to do. That's what most people would do. Your enemy is right next to you. You wouldn't help him. You say, drop dead. And your donkey can drop dead. You both can drop dead and go eat kugel. I ain't helping you. You could do that. Not a good thing to do, but you could do it. Why? Because you hate the person. It doesn't matter why. You can be totally justified. Doesn't matter why, right? Says the Gemara, you know what? The halacha is you help the other person first. The other person, you hate their guts to overcome your evil inclination. That's hard. Doesn't matter distance. Relevant of distance. Either animal's, not going to die. They're just getting crushed. They're not going to die. They're just, the burden is very heavy on them. So I get it. But the Gemara says, the one you hate, you have to help first to overcome your evil inclination. Mind-boggling idea. And you can be 100% justified why you hate them. You're not allowed to hate anyone in your heart anyway. True. Can't bear a grudge. Also true. So if you have a lot of expectations from people, they don't meet it. This is a problem. This is a big problem. But regardless, what's the issue here? Overcome your evil inclination. Doesn't matter. Someone asks, what page is that quote from Duties of the Heart? It's in the Gate of Self-Accounting. Gate of Self-Accounting, chapter 3. And in chapter 3, there are 30 things that we should take into account for self-accounting, that we should do for self-accounting. This is the end of number 18. The paragraph right at the end of number 18, right before 19. That's where it is. Let me see any other questions here. There's no odds. I keep water in a jug near the bed, recite Moda Ani. Is that okay? Non-Jews, no obligation. Zero obligation. It's what Jews do also. Right? So no, it's not something they necessarily they should do. Someone asked, second question. You occasionally read Talmud trying to understand Judaism deeper. Only what applies to you. Not allowed to learn things deeper don't apply to you. If it applies to you, even learning Talmud, to understand it better is also a problem. Right? Learn whatever. It's the whole question about learning deeper. In general, no I should learn what they need to learn. They can learn in a deep way. They should learn Gemara in a deep way, even about their own subject. In general. Why is that? Because again, it doesn't apply to you. It's oral law, it doesn't apply. So why should you be allowed to do it? One thing Noahites have to keep in mind, you're not Jews. You're not pseudo-Jews. You don't straddle both lines over here. Right? You do what you're obligated to do. So learning your own laws, and whatever they may be, okay, so that you can learn in depth, but, certainly not from, these sources. Right? We learn in depth for a reason. Non-Jews don't have that obligation. Say, can I do it again? You're crossing the line. That's crossing the line. What about Torah thought if you're outside like camping while you're defecating? What's the difference? It doesn't matter if you're it doesn't matter if you're in the bathroom or not. While you're doing that, you shouldn't have Torah thought. Doesn't matter where you are. You can be outside, irrelevant. In the bathroom, all the more so. Because that's the action that you're doing. So you shouldn't be thinking Torah thoughts at that time either way. Someone asked the room itself, the act of defecating. It's both, right? It's the room itself and in the bath and being in the bathroom at the same time. So what if you're in my case, you're stuck in the bathroom, right? Everything's clean, doesn't matter, right? The place itself. The fact that you have a toilet there is disgusting. Doesn't matter if nothing's in it, right? That doesn't matter. Let me see a few other questions here. The Job friends not talk to him. Say we should not talk to someone mourning until they talk to you. Depends what it was. Depends when it was. If it's in mourning, yeah, but if they're giving advice and he doesn't want to hear it or whatever, it's different. It's a different issue. Can person pray in bed if you're ill? Yes. can't get out of bed, you're allowed to pray in bed, right? And if you can't get out of bed and you're in pain and this and that, so you don't have an obligation to pray if you can't. God's not going to respect you if you're sick, can't get out of bed, get a fever, whatever, to be able to pray. If you can, very good. If not, you're under onus. You don't have an obligation over here. Someone has duties of heart. It's better studying, just go to the whole book, review it page by page until it's in memory. I would say read it. It's a book where it's not like, I would say, what's it called? Derech Hashem, the way of God, where you should just read it quickly first and then, sit on it and think about it. So I would say, go through it slowly. Read it, think about it. You don't have to read it fast, right? If you read it slower, then until you incorporate it, fine, right? But again, any of these things the person studies, Jewish philosophy, other things, don't read it like a newspaper. Read it, think about it, see how it can be implemented, in your life. Yeah. Any other questions? The truth that Hashem won't help for tikkun abris. I don't know. Go ask people who speak about that. I don't speak about that. If a person repents, I'll just say this. If a person does repent, why shouldn't God help them? Why shouldn't they help them? It's not a good thing they do, right? Totally not a good thing they do. No question. A person can repent for anything they do. As long as it's done, as long as it's done properly. Right? So if it's done properly, why shouldn't he? I tell me liable for death penalty, but you can repent. Someone asked, I read multiple books 1 hour a day or one book at a time. I don't know. There are people that read multiple things. You don't have to read the same thing. It'll take you longer to do. So yeah, you can read different things. I think it's good to get a general knowledge. Anyway, not just reading the same thing. If a person can go through something and, they want to finish it or whatever, I'll just say, like, I have certain things I learned, during the week, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. Right. And so, a certain amount of time, over a certain amount of time, you cover ground. All right. Now, some people do it longer. Some people, have other things I'll do, let's say, for 25 minutes, 30 minutes. Right. Other things, 20 minutes. It depends on what it is. Right. But, it's obviously not the same thing. Right. So, it depends. I think it's good to read a number of things. Right. Just to have your mind in different directions. Not just going through one thing at a time. Per se. Or like Musar, a person should learn Musar every day. Now, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. I think, if there are books of Jewish philosophy also, should learn a little bit every day. Jewish law, certain amount every day. Chumash, a certain amount every day. You gotta, split it up. But you want to cover ground and, get, a lot of different ideas about a lot of things. Obviously trying to keep everything in your head, but, to have a more, proper general knowledge, I would say. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop there. I do this every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Israel time. So next week we'll continue. Pirke Avos, Ethics for Our Fathers, Chapter 2, Mishna 13, parts 12. Right, I didn't get very far as I saw this week. Tomorrow, Sunday, Book of Leviticus, Chapter 16. It's going to be 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time, and then Noahide Nations. Going to be Noahide Laws, 2:30 Eastern time, 9:30 Israel time. So anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, RabbiChaimKaufman@gmail.com, RabbIChaimKoffman@gmail.com. Wish everyone a good